So the church is not a group of attenders. The church is not a crowd. The church is a group of saved people.
Welcome again to the Straight Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Philpot. As always, I'm joined by Pastor Richard Caldwell, the pastor of Founders Baptist Church, and we would like to interact with you about these discussions. So please leave a comment right below this video or interact with us on social media. And then lastly, go to the iTunes podcast section for us and please leave us a review. A lot of times when we encounter people from other churches, we ask them to tell us about their church, and sometimes the first response we get, or maybe the first response I even give, is our church is this size. There are this many people in the church, or our church does this sort of thing. We have this impact in the community, so on and so forth. Let's just think about this biblically. In God's sight, what is success in the church? How do we measure success in the church?
Faithfulness. Success is measured by faithfulness. It's not measured by size. The first thing we need to remember is what the church is. It is to be. It's not always the case. In fact, it's never completely the case, I fear. But it is to be a group of regenerated people, people who've experienced the new birth, who know Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, who have then covenanted together to carry out the Great Commission, to carry out what God reveals in His Word that the church is to be and to do. This is what the church is. So the church is not a group of attenders. The church is not a crowd. The church is a group of saved people. And when I say I fear that it's not always entirely that, we just know, the Bible teaches us, that there will be tares among the wheat.
Right.
So even as we're very careful to ask people about their testimony and make sure they understand the gospel, even then, we know in our own church there are people here who probably are not truly regenerate. They don't know Christ. But that is to be the standard, regenerate church membership. I say that because I think there are churches that they talk about how many people they have present, but they're not talking about members necessarily. They're just talking about attenders. How many seats are in the pew? And that's not how you measure a church. In fact, some churches are trying to appeal to lost people in the way that they organize their services, their ministry, so as to be attractional. So let's do attractional ministry, attract people through various forms of entertainment or whatever. They misunderstood what the church is. So the church gathers for edification, for discipleship, not for evangelism. It scatters for evangelism. It's not to say evangelism can't happen in a church service as the gospel is preached. People get saved. But our purpose for gathering is discipleship. And so the church's ministries should be, on Sundays, should be geared to that, to discipling the people of God. Then we scatter to evangelize. And modern church growth theory turns that on its head. We try to attract the community to the church service, to evangelize them, and then we meet in small groups to be discipled. So we got to be clear on what the church is. That's the first thing I would say. And then when I think about the 7 letters to the churches in the book of Revelation, there is nothing there that indicates their health or their disobedience is being determined based upon their size. Nothing. It always has to do with their spiritual condition. We are given a record of how many people were added to the church on the day of Pentecost, and some other sermons that followed that. So we're not sinful to note we had 500 people here Sunday, or we had 200 people here Sunday, or we had 35 people here Sunday. It's not wrong to just take note of that. Sometimes when I'm asking someone the question, what size is your church? I'm not thinking about whether they are successful or not. I'm just trying to get a sense for what they have to shepherd, and even get some ideas about how they do things that might help us here. So those are the reasons for those questions sometimes. But the bottom line is, health in a church is measured by the faithfulness of that church. Christ is the builder of the church. We don't build it. He builds it. I will build my church, Jesus said. So it's not my responsibility to build it, but just to be faithful to the head of the church, the chief shepherd of the church, and in that way, he would be pleased with us. That's how you measure the church.
Yes. Thanks for joining us again for the Straight Truth Podcast. We're releasing episodes every week on every Thursday. So if you'd like to receive those episodes, just subscribe to one of our social media channels. You can find all those channels and all the details about this podcast at our website, straighttruth.net. And do us a favor, go to the iTunes podcast section and leave us a review. Also, just go to the YouTube section, leave a comment there for us, something you'd like us to discuss, and subscribe to our channel. Now, Straight Truth is a production of Walking in Grace Ministries. For more information, go to walkingingrace.org.